Watch a waitress helped an old Hell's Angel biker every morning until 4 bodyguards, her lawyers, arrived. Watch this emotional story of kindness and secrets. Please subscribe our channel, like this video, and share it with friends for more inspiring stories worldwide. So let's begin. Every morning in a quiet Arizona town, the same ritual unfolded inside a small roadside diner just off Route 66. The bell above the door rang at exactly 6:10 a.m., announcing the arrival of an old Hell's Angel biker named Frank. His leather vest was faded, his boots worn, and his grey beard neatly combed. Most customers stiffened when they saw the skull patches on his vest. Some whispered, others asked for different tables. Frank never reacted. He always chose the same corner booth near the window, sat slowly, and placed his gloves beside his coffee cup. He spoke little, as if words were expensive. Lily, a 24-year-old waitress working 2 jobs, treated him no differently than anyone else. She greeted him with a soft smile and poured his black coffee before he asked. She noticed how his hand shook when he lifted the cup and how his eyes softened whenever she said, "Take your time." Frank tipped modestly, sometimes only loose change, but Lily never minded. On slow mornings, she'd bring him a donut that would have been thrown out anyway. Frank always protested quietly, then thanked her like the gesture meant more than the food itself. Over weeks, Lily learned his routine. He read the newspaper carefully, folded it precisely, and stared out the window as if remembering another life. Occasionally, she spotted scars on his arms, old, deliberate, and telling stories he never shared. Other waitresses avoided Frank, uneasy about his biker past. Lily, however, sensed loneliness rather than danger. She was studying law part-time and believed people were more than their appearances. Frank, she thought, carried regret, not threat. One bitter winter morning, the diner was nearly empty. Frank looked pale, his breathing shallow. As Lily refilled his cup, it slipped from his hands and shattered. He slumped sideways, collapsing onto the booth seat without a sound. Lily rushed to him, shouting for help. She dialed 911, held his hand, and spoke calmly until the paramedics arrived. As they wheeled him out, Frank looked at her with watery eyes and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." At the hospital, Lily stayed long after her shift ended. A nurse mentioned Frank had no emergency contact listed. Lily felt a strange ache in her chest, realizing how alone he truly was. She visited him again the next morning before work. That visit changed everything. A hospital administrator pulled Lily aside and asked how she knew Frank. Confused, she explained he was a regular customer. The administrator nodded slowly, surprised, and said Frank had specifically requested to see her. Frank revealed pieces of his past in fragmented sentences. He had been a union leader decades earlier, fighting corporate corruption. The biker image had protected him after threats forced him underground. A massive lawsuit win followed, but he chose a quiet life to observe humanity. Lying in that hospital bed, Frank told Lily he spent his final years watching how people treated him when they believed he was nothing. Most failed the test. Lily hadn't. As machines hummed softly, Frank closed his eyes, trusting that kindness still existed. 2 weeks passed after Frank's collapse, and the diner felt strangely incomplete without him. Lily still poured 1 extra cup of black coffee every morning, letting it sit untouched in the corner booth by the window. No one asked about it, but everyone noticed. One quiet afternoon, as rain tapped softly against the glass, 4 men in dark suits stepped inside the diner. Their posture was alert, their movements controlled. Behind them walked 2 sharply dressed lawyers, carrying leather folders. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward Lily. The lead lawyer approached politely and asked if they could speak with her privately. Her heart raced as she wiped her hands on her apron, fearing she'd done something wrong. They led her to the empty booth Frank once occupied. The lawyer explained that Frank had passed away peacefully 3 days earlier. Lily felt her throat tighten, grief washing over her stronger than she expected. Before she could speak, the lawyer continued, saying Frank had left detailed instructions naming her in his final will. Stunned, Lily listened as documents were placed on the table. Frank had owned controlling interests in multiple companies through a trust formed decades earlier after a historic legal settlement. He had lived modestly by choice, deliberately distancing himself from wealth. Frank's will described Lily not as a waitress, but as a person of character. He had documented her kindness in handwritten notes, recorded daily observations, and even requested surveillance footage from the diner to support his decision, all legally obtained. The bodyguards were not there to intimidate her, the lawyer explained, but to protect her. Frank anticipated public backlash once his identity and assets became known. He wanted Lily shielded from attention until everything was finalized. Days later, the story quietly surfaced in local news. The mysterious Hell's Angel with a hidden fortune became a headline, but Lily's name was initially withheld. When the inheritance was officially transferred, her life changed overnight. Lily paid off her student loans, her mother's medical bills, and bought the diner when the elderly owner revealed plans to shut it down. She refused to fire anyone, raising wages instead and fixing what years of neglect had broken. More importantly, Lily honored Frank's values. She started a free breakfast program for struggling workers, veterans, and anyone down on their luck. No questions asked, no judgment passed, just warm food and respect. On the diner wall, Lily placed a small brass plaque near the window booth. It read, "Kindness is never wasted." Every morning, 1 cup of black coffee is still poured and left untouched. Frank's fortune changed Lily's future, but his lessons shaped her soul. In a world quick to judge by appearances, one old biker proved that how you treat someone when they seem powerless reveals who you truly are.